Another college football Saturday, another college football Saturday with upset victims. We had lots of victims that are eliminated from the college football playoff with 2 losses now. Ohio State getting smashed by Iowa today on the road. J.T. Barrett, 4 interceptions in that game. Oklahoma State losing the Battle of the Bedlam, giving them their second loss of the season, ultimately eliminating their playoff chances. Penn State with their second loss, a heartbreaker to Michigan State. Their college football playoff quest is theoretically over, unless we get a 2007 situation where everybody loses twice, which I don't see happening. But still, these rankings this week, they're going to be good rankings just like last week. I know we had some controversy last week, but if you thought last week was controversy, this week is going to be filled with controversy. I can promise you that. So, I'm planning on doing these every week for those of you that didn't tune in last week, or this is your first time watching this channel. On Saturday nights when the week is over, I am going to do these top 10 playoff rankings. That way it gives you about 2 or 3 days to process before the committee releases their top 10 to see how it kind of compares to mine. So without further ado, let's get to the obvious. Kind of like last week. If you watched last week, I'm going to kind of do what's kind of obvious, and I'm going to kind of go work my way a little bit backwards. Let's start off with what's obvious right here. I'm going to start really differently this week. The obvious for me is Notre Dame being number 3. Now, Notre Dame at number 3 is kind of obvious. And I apologize in advance for if you're not able to see this. But Notre Dame is number 3. Now, the next obvious is going to be 1 and 2. Whether it's going to be Alabama, Georgia, or Georgia, Alabama. You can make an argument for either one of those teams being number 1. But I have Alabama being number 1. And I'm going to explain it right when I finish this stuff right here. And I apologize for my penmanship. It's just that I am in such a hurry with this. So I can give you guys enough time to process this. Okay. The reason why Alabama is number 1 in this poll and not Georgia. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with the statements, saying that Georgia should be number 1. But the reason why I have Alabama at number 1 is because eventually these two are going to face each other. One of them's going to win and one of them's going to lose. Let's just assume that they're both going to play each other in the SC title game, both 12-0. And the reason why I have Alabama number 1, ultimately, because I think if these two faced off right now for the SC title game, I think Alabama will win by at least 4 points. Georgia, in my opinion, right now is the only team that can match up with Alabama physically right now that before the college football playoff. And I would put Alabama winning that matchup, prospectively. So let's kind of go to the back now. At number 10, this is going to stir up some controversy. But there's 2 teams on this list. You can make a legitimate argument for being number 10. And I'll tell you who the 2 teams are right now. One of them is going to be who I have at number 10. And that is the Auburn Tigers. Now, I was kind of in a pickle between putting Auburn or Penn State for the number 10 spot. Because you can make a legitimate argument for either one of those 2 teams. You could basically win in an easy debate saying that Auburn and Penn State are the best 2-loss teams in college football right now. I know that Ohio State lost to Oklahoma and Iowa. Penn State lost to Ohio State, Michigan State. Auburn lost to Clemson, and they also lost to LSU. Both of those were one-possession games. Ohio State lost in blowouts, theoretically, and Penn State has lost some close games that came down to the wire. So I have Auburn number 10, and the reason why, before you get on me in the comment section, because I feel like with Auburn being number 10, they're number 10 in this poll because of my opinion on the potential that Auburn has. Like, for example, if Auburn wins out, let's just say in theory, let's just say Auburn wins out in this scenario. They would have beaten Georgia, they would have beaten Alabama, then they would have beaten Georgia again in the SEC title game. That would be winning out. Even though Auburn's a 2-loss team, they have a legitimate argument for representing this top 4. So I got Auburn at 10 because of their potential. Now, number 9. Welcome back to the top 10, Washington. Now, Washington's at number 9 because, let's just face it, Washington is the Pac-12's last hope for a spot in the college football playoff. And Washington, they're not that bad of a team. Although they have played close games, they've lost to Arizona State a few weeks ago. But still, that one loss shouldn't define Washington. I mean, a lot of teams really lost that week. Like Clemson lost that week. Auburn lost that week. There's just so many upsets that week that you can kind of nullify Washington if they went out. They could have an argument by saying they're a conference champion. And number 8, this is where the controversy begins. Because the further we get along in this, the more exciting it gets. But at number 8, I got the Badgers of Wisconsin. And the same argument as usual. Wisconsin hasn't played a competitive schedule yet. But the good thing about this whole situation is Wisconsin is probably really glad that Iowa upset Ohio State today. Because in my opinion, Iowa might be in the top 25 based on that upset. I mean, Iowa's not a team to mess with. Iowa almost beat Penn State. Iowa almost beat Michigan State. Iowa had a heartbreaking loss in overtime to Northwestern. So Iowa's 3 losses are really close ball games. They were inches away from beating Penn State. 1 or 2 things go differently in the Michigan State-Iowa game. Iowa could win that game as well. And if they would have just been able to finish it off against Northwestern, we're talking maybe Iowa could be a contender if they were able to pull just those 2 or 3 of those 3 games out. Like if they could have beaten Penn State, we could have talked about maybe Iowa could sneak in here, like sneak in and get in the New Year's 6 bid. But Iowa could play spoiler. All right, number 7. Welcome back to the top 10, TCU. Now, TCU still controls its own destiny, in my opinion, because they still got some tough games left. They can run the table. They could make an argument for the top 4. Like, this is either going to come down to the wire, or it's going to be pretty straightforward, like we had 2 years ago. I think it could come down to either the wire on these, or it's going to be pretty straightforward once we get to December. But we're in the point of November, the point of the year. We're in the month of November. Nobody's safe. Anybody can lose at any given time at this point in the year. Championship teams are built in the month of November. They form up in the month of November. Because to win a national championship, you've got to rise to the occasion in the later portions of the year. And right now, teams like TCU, Washington, Auburn, Notre Dame, Georgia, Alabama, they all have the potential to do that. And this is where it's going to get really exciting. At number 6, finally earning the respect of yours truly. After a long time, 3 consecutive weeks of getting bailed out on some certain plays on offense and defense, the Miami Hurricanes finally earning my respect. They just turned Virginia Tech into mincemeat. They made quarterback Josh Jackson look like a freshman. And here's really interesting. 4 or 5. Is it Clemson or is it Oklahoma? Let's end the mystery. I'm going to hide behind here to make sure that nobody can see. See, if you're watching, comment if I faked you out. Because I had one team written on 4, but then I changed it. At number 4, I have the Oklahoma Sooners. And number 5, I got the Clemson Tigers. Now, Oklahoma could still run the table. Clemson could still run the table. Miami still could. TCU still could. Washington still could. Auburn still could. Notre Dame could still run the table. In fact, out of all these teams right here in this top 10 that control their own destiny, it is Notre Dame, Clemson, and the winner between Oklahoma and TCU, or maybe the winner of Notre Dame, Miami. But I'll tell you what, college football next weekend is going to be big. Lots of big matchups here. Notre Dame and Miami next week, as well as Oklahoma and TCU, as well as Georgia and Auburn. It's going to be a really good stretch of the finish. It's going to be a fight for it. Whoever makes these 4 spots is really going to earn it. Anyway, that is my top 10. I'll be back on Tuesday for the reaction of the committee releasing their playoff rankings. Like and subscribe to the channel. Share this with your friends and family. I will see you next time. Have a good day, everyone.